Aloha everyone and welcome to Tuning Up with Iggy and Dave. We're here at the beautiful and incomparable Halikulani. Dave, did you have something to do with it?
Did I? No. This, well, the Hawaii Theater Center, the stage was full of musicians because we've got rehearsals going on this week for our close of our indoor season. Both our Halikulani Masterworks season comes to a close this weekend with some great programs that Kay will be conducting. But first, we have to close our HapaSymphony series. This was a new program that we launched this season, working with Aaron Salah and Shelley Kramer, who's one of our board members here at the Symphony, to really afford this opportunity to bring Hawaiian music and our symphonic repertoire under one program. And we opened with Makaha Sons. We did a reboot of Hawaii Calls. We had the incomparable Robert Casimiro join us just a few weeks ago. And boy, what better way to close than with Raiatea Helm, who's joining us here today. Welcome.
Hey guys. Aloha.
Great to have you. Thank you so much for joining us. And so I understand, Raiatea, you just met our maestro who will be sharing the stage with you just a couple minutes before the show.
Yes, Raijan.
So honored.
Nice to meet you.
Thank
But
you.
you, even though this was the first time in person you met, you know each other very well through social media?
I do, because you're on my Spotify playlist, and then I follow you on social media, and then people in Japan know you as Raijan, and yeah, I just love your music. And then when this Hapa program was introduced to me, and then that I learned that you were the soloist, I was just very excited. So I'm so happy to be here this week, working with you.
Yes.
Raiatea, did Aaron, Salah, or Dave have to do any convincing for you to join us on stage?
No convincing. No. It was just a simple ask, and I was right on board.
I want to get to the core of the songs that you're going to be singing, but as Dave mentioned, this is a Hapa series, so a diverse program. You're going to be singing Puccini, O mio Babino Caro, which is from his opera Gianni Schicchi. Have you sang that before?
Yes, for my recital at the university here.
Oh, fun.
I received my bachelor's in music. And what a challenge for me to grow up listening to Hawaiian music and not having formal training. A lot of Hawaiian artists, we learn as we go, and we build this ear, and we just pick up an instrument and we'll just figure it out. And 20 years of being in the music industry, I never established classical training or had any idea what Western music was like until 2017 was my first year at the university, and I had friends that would say, "Oh, right, it's okay. You're just gonna learn the terms, and you'll know what you'll get through it. It'll be easy for you." And I'm like, "Okay." Nope, it wasn't easy. It was hard, trying to learn a new way of hearing and learning to read, but it really opened my my eyes to
I'm
music.
I'm curious because the Hawaiian singing is so versatile. The technique is just, I can't even describe it in words because you go through so many different colors. But then singing classically, like operatic arias, what was so striking to you when you started to take formal lessons?
Well, I think for me, looking into classical music, it's the discipline behind it.
I see.
Where it's written. It's a written composition, and it's there's a different structure to it. And for Hawaiian music, the singing evolved throughout the years. When you would listen to old, early recordings from the 19-teens, you'll hear Hawaiian ensembles and instruments, but they all sort of have like a same sound. And I think with the influence of music from all over the world, whether it's jazz or rock, R&B, it helps to sort of have fun with the singing. but I've always been intrigued with opera. I mean, that's always the dream, you know, because you get to see what's behind the singer, and to be in this this role coming up on Friday, it's you know, it's a dream come true, because we don't often have this kind of opportunity as Hawaiian performers, and so it's, yeah, I'm really excited. Yeah,
So, behind the singer, I traditionally ask a question on this show, which allows you to answer any way you'd like, but could you take us back to the very beginning? As early back as you'd like to go. You said you had 20-year career, so you must have started when you were 1 or 2.
No.
Can we start from Molokai?
Yeah.
Start from the beginning for us.
So many of you may know that Molokai is a population of maybe 7,500, and a very small populated island. Everyone knows everyone. There's a sticker that we saw on a friend's truck that says, "Whatever happens on Molokai, everyone knows." But I grew up in a musical family, and my father played guitar, he sang, but I think it started from his dad, who sang falsetto. You know, my grandfather was a German, Hawaiian, Portuguese man who was a farmer. You know, he grew up on the plantation in Maui, and you know, they loved to play music, you know, play the guitar and sing. So falsetto was always around in my childhood.
So sorry to interrupt you. Falsetto, when I'm thinking falsetto, I'm thinking of man singing higher. I'm not necessarily thinking of women doing falsetto, because maybe in Europe in the old days, women wouldn't be singing, and so that's why you had men singing falsetto. What is your perspective growing up?
So I think there is a style that we call in Hawaiian falsetto, and to me, I believe that it's you know, it doesn't matter if it's a female or a male. And it has to start with the songbird of Hawaii, Lina Machado, who was very popular in the 1920s through the 40s, and she was the matriarch of leo ki'eki'e, or falsetto, Hawaiian falsetto. And it has to do with the blending of, you know, singing in high pitch, but also incorporating the oli. You know, and with oli you have different elements, and you know, when you use your nose and you know, the different instruments in your voice, it allows one to be spontaneous and to, you know, feel the song as they go. So when you hear Lina Machado, she won't sing a song the same way twice, and it depends on how she feels, and it also goes with her lyrics. But I speak of Lina Machado because she really paved the way for a lot of Hawaiian performers, and falsetto was very popular in the 20th century, and it still is, because it's, and I think falsetto in general too.
So you learned popular from your parents?
From my dad.
And
So falsetto was already in the male part of our family. My dad, I had an uncle, George Jarrett Helm, who was a very talented Hawaiian musician. He was also an activist in the 1970s, especially during the fight for Kaho'olawe. And he was, that was a great loss for our people. He was a Hawaiian leader.
When did you find your calling for singing, that this is you know, the path that you want to take?
Yeah, that's interesting, because, you know, growing up, I wanted to be the athlete, you know, and I have 21 first cousins on my dad's side, and how long did you stay in Molokai? I lived there till my senior year in high school. Yeah, till 2002. So growing up, I wanted to play sports. Sports is big on the island, and especially in Hawaii, it's sports that comes before the arts. But I wanted to be a top athlete. I wasn't that good. So I okay, check that off. I also, I was in halau. I danced from when I was 4 years old, but I wasn't in love with it. I mean, I did it because my tutu, my grandmother, really loved that I danced. And it was the music behind the hula that really pulled me. So I was like, and plus I was a tomboy growing up. I had brothers, we had a lot of boy cousins, and we're always outside. Molokai, you can just go there and let your hair down, shorts and shirts with slippers, and people love you that way. And that's what I love about going back home. So I can
Right.
take all the makeup off, and they'll know me. And so it has a lot to do with my upbringing.
Yeah, yes. I used to live in the Moanalua Valley, and our
okay.
neighbor's from Molokai, so
Oh.
he's a pharmacist now. You probably know him. But
Yes,
you mentioned,
his sister's my best friend,
Everyone, everyone
and-
knows everyone, right?
and she's a pharmacist,
And he
and their
has-
sister's a pharmacist.
we see his garden. It's beautiful. He has a green thumb, and he grows everything.
Oh, nice.
But you mentioned something about 2002 to high school. I remember when I joined back then it was called the Honolulu Symphony.
Yes.
Matt Kettingen was our pops conductor, and I hadn't heard much of Hawaiian falsetto. But you were on our subscription concert, and that was the first time I heard you. So you must have been in your late teens. Around that time,
That-
2002 or 3,
I was 20. I was 20 at that time.
and I was
Yeah.
just like, flabbergasted at your talent, and you just there was a technical level that as a performer I'm always like keen, because you always, is she singing in pitch and things like that, but also the emotion, what you were able to convey through your melody, and you were telling a story, and you mentioned that you went to school later at UH, but I think everything was there before. I heard an interview you gave a while ago. It's one thing to, like my sister said, you're singing, and you have talent, and you're singing in a family at home, but there's a point where you have so much talent, and this becomes your vocation, right? But I think we don't understand what it takes to be a professional musician sometimes. We think, you can just sing on the spot or be ready anytime. But tell us about when this became a full-time activity, and where you have to kind of be somewhat methodical in your career.
Well, that's a deep question. I love it. So being in the industry for 20 years, and I think starting young has had a lot of challenges. Trying to figure out there's a when you want to give your all, and then you learn about the business. The business can be a little tricky, but you're still young, and you want to just you want to just sing, and
You don't want to have to worry.
It's a journey, it's finding your purpose, and it may not come right away. And I think that's the beauty of music, and celebrating that ability to express, your love for many, many different things. And music can touch people on so many levels, right? You have, especially for Hawaiian music, there's the text, you have the composer, And a lot of the songs that I sing were written a long time ago. It's from a different time. But when I was younger, I didn't understand that. I only felt something, that it was right, it was good. But later on in my life, as I go through my experiences, everyone goes through different chapters, right? Where you go through relationships and you fall, and then you come, you get back up, and then things change. The feeling changes, and that's why with like jazz, female singers or blues singers, they sing with just, strong emotion. And Hawaiian singers are that as well, because when you look at our history, the suppression of our people and colonization, but all in all, we have the opportunity to retell these stories in a beautiful light. That's all we can do, and being positive, and sharing the stage with wonderful musicians and conductors and people behind the scenes that make it all happen. It's a great responsibility, and I think I finally realized what my purpose is. So, and I hope that we have more Hawaiian music with the symphony, because there's one thing where you have Hawaiian songs by itself. You have the composer, you have the time in which the song was written, you have the people of that time, the history, you have the different musical elements, and then you have an orchestra that's able to enhance all of that. That's powerful. Hawaiian music on a different level, on a different manifestation, and for me to be able to feel that on stage, it's like that's like no other.
Before we get into talking about the program for this week, you talk about purpose, and I know you're doing some really amazing work with the Liliuokalani Trust right now on that next generation of musicians and artists. And can you talk a little bit about the work you're doing there, kind of stewarding and fostering the next generation of the incredible talent that we have here in Hawaii?
Sure. Liliuokalani Trust is, we're starting more programs, even though the trust was founded in 1909. By our last reigning monarch, Hui Liliuokalani. We're in a special time where we're able to partner with the Symphony and other great, amazing artists to allow our kamali'i, or our children, to thrive. So providing them the resources that perhaps they wouldn't have. And for me, as an artist, being able to travel and collaborate with many different musicians and performers, I love collaborating, so that I can take that, learn from it, and hopefully one day teach that to the next generation. Because not everyone wants to leave Hawaii, and that's okay. We have a lot of talent here, but we just need more resources. So, individuals like myself and Aaron Salah and even Lilahua, and I hope to work with her soon. And hopefully we'll get to work and put together some programs. That's what it's about. It's about bringing those individuals that share the same passion, that can bring up the next generation, and to expose them and allow them to explore and discover music of the past, present, and future. So that's what we're doing. So
it's great, and we brought this up in our tuning up episode that we already did this week, but I'm going to use every platform we can to share the news of Lilahua, Pulitzer Prize finalist for a new composition she did, the Eyes the Color of Time, which is it's a work she wrote about contemporary art pieces that were here at Spalding House in the Honolulu Museum of Art. But it's wonderful to have seen the 3 finalists for the Pulitzer Prize in music this year all come from indigenous people. That these are stories that we must continue to tell.
Yes.
And Lilahua has some wonderful opera projects that are coming to tell the story of this place that we're eager to be a part of. But that's the future. Let's talk about Friday night at the Hawaii Symphony Orchestra. What's on the program?
I mean, there's a lot.
There's a lot.
You know, but that's who I am. You know, I was able to, perform with the trio, with the orchestra. You know, I also performed with Mick Fleetwood. We had a band over on Maui. So and performing with Kiho'alu artists, Keola Beamer, performing with Kelly Reichel, different artists. I love that, and why not? I think it's appropriate in Hawaii. So anyway, we have traditional contemporary Hawaiian. We also have opera, an opera piece, and a Japanese song, which I love. And we'll also have 3 special guests from Honolulu that will come in.
You mentioned about storytelling and how the story evolves. Would you share us some of the songs that we're singing this week that you have the most history with? How about that?
The most history with.
Yeah, because I'm assuming that when you first sang this song, whenever you were the very first time, compared to 5 years later, compared to now, I'm assuming that the way you tell the story has evolved or has changed, or the perspective has changed. I think that happens with us classical artists too, because take a violin concerto. When you study as a student versus now when you perform as a professional, very different.
Right, right. I think Pua Mai Ole.
Okay.
Pua Mai Ole is it's an older composition, but it speaks of a love between a father and a daughter. And Pua Mai Ole means never fading flower. I've always loved the way it sounded. It's just, it's really the epitome of that, it's a great example of old Hawaii, 1950s. And to have an arrangement done with the strings, that's...
Does it put you in a different world?
It's on a different level, I think. It really, it's hard to explain. There's no words to explain that feeling, but
it is it's beautiful music.
Because the arrangement, I think, is important, because you don't want to, when you're taking a song that's so simple, Mele Hawaii, really you don't want to touch it.
Right.
And I've learned, through my mentors, that as long as you keep the melody and honoring the composer, but I feel that there's, some space to go in there and try to, connect with perhaps what the composer was trying to feel or see in that time as a Hawaiian. I mean, that's very significant to music as it evolves, and to have, Michael Fumai create an arrangement for Pua Mai Ole that's so cinematic. It adds a different layer of beauty.
Arrangements are so important. Yes, you want to keep the integrity. I remember we had Kanoe Miller, a hula dancer, and we had some arrangements and songs, and one of the arrangements at the rehearsal didn't fit her dance, so she stepped aside for that. And which reminds me, I heard an interview also, you were saying the integrity of the traditional Hawaiian music, and then sometimes you hear things that are somewhat more contemporary, but you want to preserve the traditional aspect of the music? Yeah,
so I think I'm sort of in the middle. You have your traditionalists, you have your contemporary artists, but I like to kind of, be that bridge where I understand, the protocols when it comes to music that you dance to. But I am not strictly a traditionalist in that way, where I'm just there. And then there's also room for, collaborating with different styles, because our ancestors were that way. I mean, when they made music, there was no fear. But what was also strong, in their life was the language and the poetry. It was already in them. It was very, very strong. But I like to be in the middle,
Bring people together.
Yeah.
Maestro,
I like that.
how does it feel to conduct Mozart or Kapustin and all kind of genre, at the drop of a hat? Do you have to immerse yourself before a program, or can you just jump from?
Since I've done so much of cross genre, I feel very comfortable and I enjoy it. Yeah, I love it. And then coming into this week, I've been listening to your album a lot, and then it's like high on my Spotify list. I don't really listen to that much classical music to begin with, so I've been listening to your album and then other artists too, singing the same songs, because I just want to know how other artists interpret the same tune, and that's been lovely. And for me, I'm just very excited how all of this, syncs together with the orchestra to present a very specific program, which is the Hapa series.
And it's something you can only really experience for now here in Hawaii. I think one of our long-term goals, working with the amazing artistic partners that we have, conductors and soloists alike, is that we're able to develop these opportunities for Kei to take to his orchestras in Japan, because it would be very well received there. And so, this idea that the Hawaii Symphony can be a catalyst for this expression beyond us here in Hawaii is real crucial. Before we wrap things up for today, I forgot to ask this question, but since we have Raiatea here, what's the future of the Hawaii Symphony Orchestra look like?
Well, I would love to see more Hawaiian artists on stage. I would love to have this continuance of the exchange between cultures. This is awesome, because to me, I love Japan. Japan is so special to me. I remember taking my first flight. I think it was 2002. Oh no, wait, I'm sorry, 2001. I was dancing, and it was actually, well, I call him Uncle Robert, but it was Robert's tour called Pan Pacific, and it was one of the biggest hula tours in Japan. As you know, hula is very popular.
Huge. It's huge in
but
Japan.
Robert had his own show, and it was amazing, and I sort of made one of my first appearances there. It was Robert and Manu Boyd that saw me on the plane. It was a 747 plane, and he asked if I could, sing on stage. But I was dancing, and news goes around so quick. But I was so shy. I said, no, it's okay. And then my kumu, my sensei, says, no, she'll do it. So I was like, oh shucks. But I'm glad she said yes, because that helped, my career. And then from then, I performed with Ho'okena and of course the Makaha Sons, and the list goes on. Everything just sort of opened up, and I'm just so grateful. Really, I'm grateful for the generation before me, and because I started so young, I was able to connect with a lot of the Hawaiian artists that are no longer with us. And that's a different, there's a different reverence there. The values are different. We didn't have social media. Of course, CDs, but things have changed, but I was able to learn and embrace from that older generation, where today I serve as a bridge to the younger generation. Because with Hawaiian music, we have to be very intentional. I mean, with music in general, of course, but Hawaiian music. And I think this is a great time to start fresh. Yeah, so the HapaSymphony is a wonderful opportunity to showcase Hawaiian music on that platform that you have, and enhance it, give it more color. People will come. Yes.
You're such a great ambassador.
Absolutely.
It's wonderful.
So appreciate it. Thank you for joining us today. Thank you for closing out our HapaSymphony series. I'm sure it's going to be the first of many times. I know we all hope. And Kay, thanks for joining us as well here to conduct these this week. And Iggy, always a pleasure. And at the halekulani, I mean,
Let's come back here.
we have to come back here. Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much for all the support of the Hawaii Symphony Orchestra. Tickets are available at myhso.org. Come to the Hawaii Theater Center this weekend. Come to the Waikiki Shell this summer. And join us again next season for our 22-23 Halekulani Masterworks and our HapaSymphony series, which will be announced in just a few short weeks here. So aloha and thanks again. Bye.